And welcome to Preeminent Test Prep. Today I'll be taking you through the SAT Math No Calculator section of SAT Practice Test 2. I'll be showing you how to move efficiently through this passage, as well as showing you tips, tricks, and patterns to look out for in order to hopefully improve your score. Make sure to subscribe as we'll be releasing more videos to help you with the SAT. Now let's get started. If 5x plus 6 equals 10, what is the value of 10x plus 3? Well, in order to solve for 10x plus 3, we have to first solve for x. So we will go ahead and start with 5x plus 6 equals 10. We'll subtract 6 from both sides to isolate x. We are left with 4 equals 5x. We'll divide by 5 to both sides to isolate x. And we get x equals 4/5. Now we plug 4/5 into our equation we're given, the value of 10x plus 3. So we will do 10 times 4/5 plus 3. 10 times 4/5 gets us 40 over 5 plus 3. 40 over 5 is equal to 8. So we're left with 8 plus 3, which is 11. So our answer is C. Question 2. Which of the following ordered pairs, x and y, satisfy the system of equations above? Well, what I'm going to do is I see that we have a negative 2y right here. So I know if I multiply my top equation by 2, I will have 2y and then a minus 2y. So if I add them, I will be able to get rid of my y's and have x equal a number and solve for x. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'll go 2x plus 2y is what I will get when I multiply by 2 to the top equation. And that will equal 0 because we have no number on the right side. So we have 2x plus 2y equals 0. And then we have 3x minus 2y equals 10. Now we'll go ahead and add them. So we have 2x plus 3x, which will get us 5x. And we have 2y plus negative 2y, which will get us plus 0y equals 10. So we're left with 5x equals 10. We'll divide both sides by 5 to isolate x, and we'll get x equals 10 over 5, which means x equals 2. The only answer choice with x equaling 2 is B, so B is our answer. Question 3. A landscaping company estimates the price of a job in dollars using the expression 60 plus 12 NH, where N is the number of landscapers who will be working and H is the total number of hours the job will take using N landscapers. Which of the following is the best interpretation of the number 12 in the expression? Well, we know 12 is multiplied by the number of landscapers and the hours that they work to finish the job, which means that 12 must be the hourly wage for the landscapers, for each landscaper. So if we look at our possible answer choices, we can see that A says the company charges $12 per hour for each landscaper, which is what we determined and is the correct answer. Question 4. Which of the following is equivalent to the expression shown above? Well, if we look at this expression up here, we should be able to see that it follows an A plus B squared pattern, right? Because we have 9, which can be written as 3 squared, and then we have 4, which can be written as 2 squared. So now, if we look at what our A plus B squared would be, we would have 3A squared, and then we would have plus 2, and then B is to the 4th, but since we're squaring this, B would be squared. So we would have 3A squared plus 2B squared, and I can show you how that is correct, because when we do 3A squared plus 2B squared times 3A squared plus 2B squared, we can go ahead and multiply our 3A squared by our 3A squared, multiply our 3A squared by our 2B squared, we can multiply our 2B squared by our 3A squared, and then multiply our 2B squared by our 2B squared. So 3A squared times 3A squared gets us 9A to the 4th, and then 3A squared times 2B squared gets us 6A squared B squared, and then 2B squared times 3A squared gets us another 6A squared B squared, and then 2B squared times 2B squared gets us another 4B squared, or 4B to the 4th. Let me find my eraser real quick. We've got 4B to the 4th. And a way to remember this is when we have A plus B squared, A plus B squared will always equal A squared plus 2AB plus B squared. So make sure you remember that pattern because it's important to know for the SAT. So I'm going to go ahead and circle that and actually star it so you guys know That's an important equation to know. So our answer will be 3a squared plus 2b squared squared, which is a. Question 5. If k is greater than 0, which means k is positive, and x equals 7 in the equation above, what is the value of k? Alright, so we'll go ahead and plug in 7 in our equation. So we have the square root of 2k squared plus 17 minus our 7 equals 0. So we'll go ahead and add 7 to each side before we square. So we have 7 equals the square root 2k squared plus 17. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and square each side so we can eliminate our square root. 7 squared gives us 49, so we're left with 49 is equal to 2k squared plus 17. So we're going to go ahead and subtract 17 from each side so that we can start to isolate k. 49 minus 17 gives us 32, so we have 32 equals 2k squared. We'll go ahead and divide by 2 to each side to get k squared alone. So we're left with k squared equals 32 over 2, which is 16. Now we go ahead and square root k squared, and we square root 16. Square rooting k squared gives us k. Square root of 16 gives us 4. We are left with k equals 4, which is what the question is asking. So our answer is C. Question 6. In the xy plane above, line L is parallel to line K. What is the value of P? Well, we know that when two lines are parallel, they have the same slope, which means they'll have the same rise over run ratio, right? So same slope. So we know line L, it has a run of positive 5 because it goes from negative 5 to 0. And we know that it rises 2 because it goes from 0 to 2, right? So we have a slope of 2/5 because we rose 2 and we ran 5. So now we know line K also has a slope of 2/5. So we see that line K, we increase from negative 4 to 0, so we have a rise of positive 4. So the question is, how much do we run? Well, we know that their slopes have to equal each other, so we know 2/5 must equal our rise of 4 over how much we run, right? So we'll call that P. Since we start at 0, we go to P. So what we can go ahead and do is we can go ahead and we could either multiply by P and then go ahead and do algebra and solve for P, or we can just look at the ratio, right? Because these ratios have to equal each other, and we can see that 2 times 2 equals 4, so then 5 times 2 would make P equal to 10. So the answer will be D. Question 7. If x to the power of a squared divided by x to the power of b squared equals x to the power of 16, x is greater than 1, and a plus b equals 2, what is the value of a minus b? Well, since we have the same base of x, that means that x to the power of a squared divided by x to the power of b squared will equal x to the power of a squared minus b squared, right? And we're told that that is equivalent to x to the 16th, right? So now we can go ahead and say that our a squared minus b squared equals our 16. So we'll have a squared minus b squared equals 16. Okay, now we're told a plus b equals 2. So the reason that that's important is because when we see a squared minus b squared, we know that that can be simplified into a minus b times a plus b. Okay, so if they're giving us a plus b, and we know that that'll still equal 16, so they're giving us a plus b is 2. So now we have a minus b times 2 equals 16. So now all we got to do is divide by 2 on both sides, and we get a minus b equals 16 over 2, which is 8. So therefore, we know that a minus b will be 8. So our answer will be A. Question 8. The measure A in degrees of an exterior angle of a regular polygon is related to the number of sides n of the polygon by the formula above. If the measure of the exterior angle of a regular polygon is greater than 50 degrees, what is the greatest number of sides it can have? Well, we know n is the number of sides, and we know A is the exterior angle, right? So let's say our exterior angle is 50 degrees. So we'll have 50 times n equals 360. We'll divide both sides by 50. So we get n all by itself. So now we have 360 over 50 equals n 360 over 50, right? So we need the greatest number of sides it can have. So what's the most n can be, right? It's got to be a whole number still. So what's the greatest it can be? Well, 7 times 50 gets us 350, right? But if we were to do 8 times 50, we would be over. We'd be at 400. So the greatest number of sides that it can have is 7. Question 9. The graph of a line in the xy plane has a slope 2 and contains the point 1, 8. The graph of a second line passes through the points 1, 2, and 2, 1. If the two lines intersect at point AB, what is the value of AB? Alright, when you see what is the value of AB at the end, pay attention because you're going to be tempted to solve for A and B and put one of those answers, but we're asked for the sum of A and B. So that's important to notice, okay? You always want to pay attention to what the question's asking. Alright. So, our first equation, we have a slope of 2, so we have y equals 2x, and contains the point 1, 8. Well, if it contains the point 1, 8, to find our y-intercept, all that we have to do is subtract 2 from our y, because we're moving back 1 to get to 0. So, instead of 8, we're going to have 2x plus 6, because we moved back 1 to get to our y-intercept. Now, for our next equation, we have a second line with a pair of points 1, 2, and 2, 1. Well, if we look at this, going from 1 to 2, we ran 1, so we increased our x by 1, and we decreased our y by 1, because we went from 2 to 1, right? So that means that we have a negative slope, and we have a slope of negative 1, right? So we have negative 1x, negative x, whatever you want to call it. And now if we look for our y-intercept, we see at 1 we were at 2, right? So if we go back 1 more, that means we're gaining 1, because our slope is negative 1, right? So if we gain 1, we would have a y-intercept of plus 3. Alright, now we're asked to find where these two lines are going to intersect. All we got to do is set them equal to find the x point where they intersect, and we can do that easily since we already have them in a formula of y equals for both. So we're going to go ahead and set 2x plus 6 equal to negative x plus 3. We're going to go ahead and add x to each side so we can isolate it. So 2x plus x will give me 3x. Then we're going to subtract 6 from each side. 3 minus 6 gets us negative 3. So we have 3x equals negative 3. Divide both sides by 3. And we will get x equals negative 3 over 3, which is x equals negative 1. Okay, now we got to solve for our point B. So if x equals negative 1, we can just pick which equation we want to use and then solve for y. I will pick this one right here because it's easy. It has negative x. So if we have y equals negative x, and we have x as negative 1, negative 1 will get us positive 1. Positive 1 plus 4 will get us, or plus 3 will get us 4. Positive 1 plus 3 gives us 4. Alright, so we have negative 1 for our x value, and we have 4 for our y value, and we need to add them now. So 4 plus negative 1, I'll put it up top here. 4 plus negative 1, it's the same as 4 minus 1, and our sum will be 3. So the answer is B. Question 10. Which of the following equations has a graph in the xy plane for which y is always greater than or equal to negative 1? Okay. For which y is always greater than or equal to negative 1. Alright, so we're looking for one where if this is 0, we're above it, right? So let's just go ahead and look at our equations. Y equals the absolute value of x minus 2. Well, minus 2, that's below the line it has to be at, right? That's below negative 1. So that's out. Now, y equals x squared minus 2. Well, if x is 0, y is going to be minus 2. That's below our point of negative 1, which we need to be our lowest. So B's out. Question C. Well, we see we have an x here, and we see it's minus 2. But if it's positive or negative, it's getting squared. So the lowest that it could possibly be would be 0 when x is 2. Right? So it's always going to be above that negative 1, so we know C is our answer. Question 11. Which of the following complex numbers is equivalent to 3 minus 5i divided by 8 plus 2i? So when you have a question asking you to find which number is equivalent to this, what you're going to do is you're going to multiply by 8 minus 2i over 8 minus 2i, right? So you're just going to be changing the sign in your denominator here. You're going to change the sign in the denominator where my arrow is pointing, and you're going to multiply by that as the numerator and denominator, so it keeps it as 1. And then you're going to go ahead and solve, right? So you have 8 plus 2i and 8 minus 2i. That's the difference of perfect squares. So 8 times 8 will get me 64. My plus 2i times 8 and my minus 2i times 8 will cancel. I will have negative 2i times 2i, which will get me minus 4i squared, right? We know I squared is negative 1, right? So I squared is negative 1. So I'm going to go ahead and erase that because we know negative 4 times negative 1 gets us plus 4. So I'm going to erase this. I'm going to put plus 4, which will give us 68 as our denominator. Now we're going to go ahead and find our numerator. So we have 3 times 8, which will get us 24. Negative 5i times 8, which will get us minus 40i. Then we have we have negative 2i times 3, which will get us minus 6i. And then we have negative 2i times negative 5i, which will get us plus 10i squared. And then I'm going to go ahead and put that down here so it can be seen easier. So we have 24. Then we have minus 40i and minus 6i, which comes out to minus 46i. And then we have plus 10i squared, but I squared becomes negative 1. So we have plus 10 times negative 1, which becomes minus 10. And we already determined our denominator was 68. So we can go ahead and simplify this more because we have 24 minus 10 gets us 14 minus 46i over 68. But that can be simplified, and we know it can be simplified because none of our answers contain the denominator with 68. So now we're going to go ahead and do 14 minus 46i over 68. To simplify, what we're going to do is we're going to have 14 over 68. Well, what can both of those go into? They can both be divided by 2. So we're going to have 7 over 34 because 68 over 2 is 34. And then we are going to have minus 46 over 2 becomes 23. So we have minus 23i, right? So we got minus 23i over 34 again. So our final answer is going to be 7 over 34 minus 23i over 34. Right? And so now we find which one matches it, and that is C. Question 12. A website uses the formula above to calculate a seller's rating R based on the number of favorable reviews F and unfavorable reviews N. Which of the following expresses the number of favorable reviews in terms of the other variables? Alright, so we need to find what F equals by rearranging this equation. Okay, so we're going to start out R equals F over N plus F. We're going to have to multiply by N plus F. Right, so we do that to both sides. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and distribute this R to our N and F. So we're left with Rn plus Rf equals F, right? Now we gotta subtract our F, so we have all our F's on one side. So we do that from both sides, right? So now we have Rn equals F minus Rf. Okay, now what we have to do here is we have to find this right here. So we have F minus Rf, right? Well, what is F minus Rf simplified? Well, it can be rewritten as F times 1, which is just F, and then minus R, okay? And now, if we look at what we can do, now that we have F times 1 minus R instead of F minus Rf, we can divide by 1 minus R to isolate F, right? So now we have Rn over 1 minus R equals F, and that'll be our answer, which will be B. Question 13. What is the sum of all values of m that satisfy 2m squared minus 16m plus 8? Okay, so right off the bat, I'm looking here, and I see we can factor out a 2 from this equation, because 2 goes into 2, 2 goes into negative 16, and 2 goes into 8. So I'll go ahead and do that. And I'll be left with m squared minus 8m plus 4, right? And I'll go ahead and just get rid of this 2, right? I'll set it equal to 0. Okay, now I'm seeing this. I'm looking for factors of 4 that add to negative 8. There aren't any, right? There's none, because the biggest would be 4 and 1, and they don't work. So I'm going to have to use the quadratic formula, which is going to be negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a, right? So I'll go ahead and plug in my numbers here. So my b is going to be my middle term. So I'm going to have negative 8, which will bring me positive 8. Positive 8 plus or minus square root b squared. Well, negative 8 squared is going to get me 64. Then I'm going to have minus 4 times a. What's my a? My a is just 1. And then my c is also 4, because my 4 is my last term, which is the c term. Right? So I've got 64 minus 4 times 4. Okay, so I've got 64 minus 4 times 4. Well, 4 times 4 is 16, so I'll go ahead and rewrite that in. Now 64 minus 16, well, that's going to get me 48, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in because I'm running out of space here. And then that's all going to get divided by 2a. My a is 1, so that's just going to be over 2. Now, we're going to have to simplify, right? So we have root 48. To simplify it, we're just going to find factors, right? So we got 2 and 24, then we have 2 and 12, then we have 2 and 6, and then we have 2 and 3, right? So now any numbers we have 2 of, so these 2's, we can go ahead and take out, right? So now we're going to have 2 sets of 2's, right? And I'll go ahead and put an equal sign here. So we're going to have 2 sets of 2's. 2 times 2 will bring us 4, and we have 3 remaining right here. I know it's small, but it's there. So we're going to have 4 root 3, right? So that's what the square root of 48 will simplify down to. So we're going to have 8 plus or minus 4 root 3 over 2. Okay, we're asked for the sum of all the values of n that satisfy this. Well, let's think about it, right? So we're going to have 8 over 2, which will become 4. And then we're going to have plus or minus 4 over 2 root 3. Okay. Well, we know that 4 over 2 just becomes 2, so we're just going to have 2 root 3. So it simplifies down to 4 plus or minus 2 root 3. We're asked for the sum of all values that satisfy the equation. Well, the sum of all values, if we think about it, the values are 4 plus 2 times root 3 and 4 minus 2 root 3. Well, the plus and the minus 2 root 3 are going to cancel, so we're just going to be left with 4 plus 4, which will bring us 8. Okay, so our answer will be D. Question 14. A radioactive substance decays at an annual rate of 13%. If the initial amount of the substance is 325 grams, which of the following functions F models the remaining, so that's important, remaining amount, not lost amount, in grams t years later? So the remaining amount, we're starting with 325. The only equations that start with that are A and B. And we're modeling the amount left, right? So we're not going to be multiplying by 0.13, right? The amount, think about it like this. The amount left after 1 year, if t is 1, the amount left would be 325 times 0.87 because we're losing 13%. So therefore A is our answer. Question 15. The expression 5x minus 2 divided by x plus 3 is equivalent to which of the following? Well, so here's how we're going to solve this. And this is kind of a tricky one, so you're going to want to pay attention to this one. So what we can do in this with the 5x minus 2 is if we can add something in and then subtract it so it doesn't actually change the function, we can do that to help us solve, right? So we know that we kind of want a factor of x plus 3 up top so it can cancel. So if we can get a factor of x plus 3 as our numerator, we can cancel it with the denominator for one part of our equation. So if we add 15 and we subtract 15, that's a wash, right? That just becomes 0. It doesn't affect our equation, and we still have our minus 2. Okay, so now 5x plus 15, that can be factored into x plus 3, and we have 5 times x plus 3, because that gets us 5x plus 15. We still have minus 15 and minus 2, which becomes minus 17. Okay, and now we have x plus 3, right? So the x plus 3 over x plus 3, they will cancel here, but not by the 17, right? That x plus 3 still gets divided by that 17. So we're going to end with 5, and that's a whole one. That's a whole number because our x plus 3 over x plus 3 cancel, minus 17 over x plus 3, right? That'll be our answer. And that will be D. Question 16. The sales manager of a company awarded $3,000 in bonuses to the most productive salespeople. The bonuses were awarded in amounts of $250 or $750. If at least one $250 bonus and at least one $750 bonus were awarded, what is one possible number of of 250 bonuses awarded. So what's one possible number of $250 bonuses awarded? Well, let's say that just one $750 bonus was awarded, right? So we'd have 3,000 minus 750, which would get us $2,250 left for our $250 bonuses, right? So if we divide that number by our 250, which is a cost per bonus, and we'll just say X is our variable, right? So we're going to have X will equal our $2,250 left divided by the $250 it costs for each bonus, right? So we'll go ahead and put that over here for our division. Honestly, if you can just think like this, 10 times 250, that's going to give me 2,500 minus 250, that'll be 9, right? So 9 will be your answer. But if you do have to do long division, here's how you'll do it. You'll do 250 outside the box. You'll have 250 inside the box. 250 does not go into 225, but it goes into 2,250 9 times with no remainder. So you really can't even use the long division on that one. You just you have to kind of know it. So there you go. Question 17. In the equation above, A, B, and C are constants. If the equation is true for all values of x, what is the value of b? All right, so we got to solve for our middle term, okay? So we're going to go ahead, we're going to distribute our 2x to these numbers, our 3x to its corresponding number. So 2x times 3x gives me 6x squared. 2x times 5x gives me plus 10x. 3x times 3x gives me plus 9x, and I don't actually have to do the rest because all we care about is our middle value. So we have 10x plus 9x, that's going to give me 19x. I didn't even have to do this 6x squared actually. So we get 10x, 9x, we have 19x. That 19x has to equal bx. Our x's will cancel. We'll be left with 19 as our answer. Question 18. In the figure above, AE is parallel to CD. Okay, so that means these two are parallel, and that's important, right? And I'll show you why in a minute. And segment AD intersects CE at B. What is the length segment CE? Okay, we're given B to E, so we need CB, right? We'll call that X. We need that, and then we need to add it to 8, right? So X plus 8 equals our answer, right? Okay, we know that these two angles are vertical angles, right? Right there and right there, because they have corresponding and intersecting lines. They're going to have vertical angles. They'll be the same. We'll represent that by one line. Okay, since we know CD and AE are parallel, we know that this line from A to D creates alternate interior angles which have equal angles, right? So angle A right here will equal angle D. Same thing over here, angle C, we'll call that star, the circle by it just to differentiate it, will equal angle E. And that one will give 3 lines, right, to show that it's equal, right? Okay, so now we know that these are similar triangles now. Similar triangles have a ratio between their sides, right? Their corresponding sides have a ratio. All right, so we know that from D to B, so from our 2 to our 1 on this similar triangle, should correspond from our 2 to 1 on the other, okay? So we see that we have a 10 to 5 ratio from our big similar triangle right here to our small similar triangle, right? So we know our big one is double our small one. We know our small one is half of our big one. Think about it either way, whatever you want. So we know that we need to solve for C to B, which is our 3 to our 1 in angles. So we look for our 3 to our 1. 3 to our 1 is 8. We need half of that, which will be 4. But 4 is not our answer because we're asked for C to E. C to E will be 4 plus 8, which will be 12. So our answer will be 12. Question 19. In the xy plane above, 0 is the center of the circle, and the measure of angle AOB is pi over a radians. What is the value of A? All right, so we know our y here is 1, right? So we have a 1 here. We know our x is root 3. Okay, from this, you should be able to recognize here that what you have is a special right triangle, okay? So if you have a 1 here and a root 3 here, you should know that your angle, and I'm going to write this bigger so you can see, right? You should know this angle here is going to be 60 degrees, and this angle here is going to be 30 degrees. If you don't know that, you should memorize it, and you should also know that this will be 2, right? Okay, so we can go ahead and see, we see that this angle down in here will be 30 degrees. We know that 30 degrees should equal pi over 6 radians. If you don't know that, you can actually look up on Google, just look up a degrees to radians sheet and try to memorize it if you can for the SAT. I think it'll be helpful. I would definitely memorize it. I have memorized it, so definitely do that. And we're asked for what A is in pi over A. Well, we have pi, we know A will be 6, right? So A will be 6, our answer will be 6. Question 20. In the system of equations above, A and B are constants. If the system has infinitely many solutions, what is the value of A over B? Okay, so if we have infinitely many solutions, it means we have our y-intercepts are the same and our slope is the same. So if we look here, we see that 60 is 5 times 12. Or we can also look at it as 12 is 1/5 of 60, right? So what we need to do is we need to divide this bottom equation by 5 to get our A and our B values, right? So 2 over 5 will equal our A value, and then 8 over 5 will equal our B value. Okay, so now we have our A and our B. So we have A, 2/5. Now we're dividing by B. B is a fraction. When we divide by a fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal. So we're multiplying by 5 over 8. We're flipping it. So we have 2 times 5 gets us 10. 5 times 8 gets us 40. So we have 10 over 40. 10 over 40 is 0.25, or you could also write 1 over 4. Either answer would be acceptable. Thank you for watching Preeminent Test Prep. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share, as we will be releasing more videos to help you prepare for the SAT.